Trev, you might just move in one step. Perfect.
Okay, cool. Okay, my post is today about an exploration and into incorporating sustainable development into outdoor learning, or in general into the outdoors. The way it works, I give you a quick overview about my poster. So in general, I'm going to talk a little bit about climate change and what's kind of like happening a little bit in the world and in Ireland. Then I'm going to link this whole thing to a denial theory, and then I'm going to talk about sustainable development and how it links in with the outdoor learnings and activities. Then I'm going to use this lovely model in the middle here, and it's basically a mediation model, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that more, how it can link into such kind of like activities. And I did a little survey, and yeah, that's kind of like a rough overview of what's happening. Okay, cool. So I suppose climate change in general, it's global warming is man-made. Okay, so a lot of those facts, they're actually known since the 1950s. So like we all, with our everyday doing what we do, has a massive effect onto the outdoors and to the environment. Another interesting fact, for instance, Ireland has one of the third highest CO2 emissions in the EU. Well, it's not very flattering, but and in general, I suppose climate change, if you talk to people in general, it's an uncomfortable topic. So it's going to take people because it needs to, as a drastic change in behaviors, what we do in our everyday life. And it means like we can't drive in the morning to use the car anymore, or reduce in general our electricity and our consumption. So this whole thing's basically led me to that, or in general, a lot of times when you look online, it basically means like people are in denial, so we don't know really to go either one direction or the other direction. In this case, like I'm basically linking it to a stages of change model. So in general, there's pre-contemplation and the contemplation stage. So we're basically down here, and we're trying to move into the action stage. If we don't keep moving into the action stage, we're going to just kind of like being in denial and not know which direction we have to go to. Okay. How does that whole thing link into the outdoors? Again, in general, I suppose it's all about sustainable development, or how to make our world more sustainable. So in general, I basically used outdoors, and I found this mediation model from Barron and Kenny. And in general, the way it works, so it's basically links attitudes to behaviors, because they're closely linked. Usually what we think of stuff, we probably act on it. And incorporates basically participation, or a mediator, to basically build that connection between the two of them. Okay. So in this case, like what I've seen sometimes when you walk around the States, or sometimes in Ireland, you see a snapped tree, and could be anyone, could be a child, or someone who maybe just doesn't really have a direct connection to it. Maybe just went over, snapped the tree, and didn't really thought what maybe has for an effect on the environment, and how trees are there to clean our air. So by basically doing an outdoor learning event and using it as in participation, for instance, in getting the kids to plant trees and building that connection to nature and to those things, that gets them thinking the next time, if maybe one of their friends runs over, tries to snap a tree, is like, hey, this is kind of like what I've built up, you know, I kind of like grown part of those trees, and gives just kids or adults in general the connection more to the outdoors. And then I jump over here. And I suppose apart from that, I just did then basically a small survey just to see how the outdoor sectors in general kind of like incorporating kind of like sustainable developments. So in general, most of the outcomes were that like all the instructors said definitely there is like a need for sustainable development, and to kind of like incorporate such measures, and to get kind of like more maybe from sometimes a more activity-based approach to a more thinking of like kind of like on got me there. To basically just kind of like work kind of like on the lines of kind of like engaging kids in that sense. Apart from that, yeah, I mean, it's a general type, like lead by example. It's a really important thing, but some of the things were as well, So barriers would be usually lack of time. It could be maybe a lack of management to have actually that support, and yeah, and I suppose in general, kind of like maybe repair stuff more, reuse, reduce, really important things like then just keep buying new stuff and throwing out the bin. Cool. So what brings me to near the end. So in general, I suppose climate change is happening. We need more sustainable measures, and the outdoors are definitely a platform, as I can see, and some of the other guys from the industry. And I finish it on a quote: "So to know and not to act is not to know."
Thank you, Seb. Has anybody got any questions for Seb on sustainability and the outdoors?
Could I ask, when you're working with the groups that come to your centre, do you find there's a level of awareness or interest or in issues to, with the sustainable development goals and climate change, or is it you bring it in, or does anything come from the students that you're working with?
There is, I guess, if there's the time and if you ask the questions, but a lot of times it depends on centres. Some of the more private centres, they'd be more, a lot of them sometimes are more activity focused, so they kind of like are under time pressure to get whatever their kayaking done, to get their sailing activity done, and sometimes it falls maybe, even in like the public sector it's the same thing, so a lot of them like they just, I suppose what I see there has to be just a bit more time and kind of like maybe more thought put in how we could incorporate so much more, and just like that, for instance, a kayaking activity going along the coast and looking at different geology and different, maybe how things are affected by global warming or by those natural habitats and stuff. Yeah.
And would it be a big thing for trainers to go back and revise, like teachers, if they feel that they have to learn this whole new thing to integrate it into their curriculum? Would it be a similar challenge? Like, do you do any training when you're doing the outdoor learning courses? Is there any training in that, even how do you bring up those issues, the global and local?
There is and there isn't. I suppose mostly a lot of times, suppose they're quite, suppose the NGBs or anything, like a lot of them, they would be involved in getting a qualification, get to a certain standard to be an instructor, but there's definitely some elements of it that would be including stuff like that, but it's not the main focus, I think, on a lot of the activities, and I think there could be definitely more of a shift towards more something like that.
Thank you very much, Seb.